Welcome back everyone to another high-level match of StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is a best-of-3 series of Protoss versus Zerg, where in game number 1 we find ourselves on the map Altitude. That is a little bit interesting. This is not normally a map that, well, Zerg players will keep in, especially against Protoss, opening up with the Eric build right away. It's got about a 60% win rate at the tournament level in favor of Protoss. So if you're playing a best-of-3, you can veto 2 maps. Why in the world would you keep Altitude in? Anyways, playing right here with the red Protoss pieces from South Korea, we're looking inside of the main base of Creator. His opponent in the opposite corner, playing here with the blue Zerg drones. This is a very cursed opener. What are we doing? Okay, I'll talk about this in just a second. We have none other than Serral. I'm sure that Serral knows what he's doing, but this does kind of look like a mistake. Not exactly sure why he decided to do an extractor trick into a 15 supply Overlord and then into a hatchery. I know I've already talked at length in previous videos about the Eric opener, and I know some of you are getting sick and tired of it. The thing about the Eric opener is that it's the most exciting thing that has happened to the Zerg early game since literally, well, the release of Legacy of the Void. So literally 2016 or so? It's been a little while. This, however, is not an Eric opener. This is a little bit different again. So for some reason, Serral's been messing around with his early game. This could technically be a mistake, but honestly, I doubt it. So this was a conventional Zerg build, okay? A conventional Zerg build. 13 supply Overlord into a 16 supply hatchery, 18 supply gas, 17 supply pool. That is what we've seen for, well, basically the last decade, okay? 2016, not quite a decade ago, but we're getting there. We're getting there, slowly but surely. The Eric opener, sorry. Going through puberty, apparently. The Eric opener. The Eric opener starts up with an extractor trick at, well, 14 out of 14. Then you make a drone, 15 out of 14 supply. Then you make a hatchery. Then you do another extractor trick to get an Overlord going at 15 supply. So it's 15 supply hatch, 15 supply Overlord. In this case, Serral did an extractor trick, so a 15 supply. Then, rather than going for the hatchery first, he went for an Overlord, then into a 15 supply hatch. Basically, all of this is to say that the early game is really not that different, but it's a little bit different. I can imagine that Creator here, already a little bit surprised that Altitude made it through the vetoing phase of this particular best-of-3. I said best-of-3. Said best-of-5 on the scoreboard right there. He must be looking at these timings as well, and he must have noticed, okay, something is a little bit off. In the end, though, it really doesn't matter all too much. Link speed's coming up. We have 2 hatcheries. Drones are pulled out of gas. I'm assuming, yep, the 3rd hatchery indeed will be coming up as well. Everything here is pretty normal, but I wish we had a couple of games to compare right here, because I do feel like this is an inferior way to start for Zerg. Could very well be, though, that this is a map-specific choice. So, one problem you can actually run into, and I've had this in some of my own games, it's a Stargate opener, by the way, from Creator. Nothing all too weird, we've seen this a million times. One thing you run into with the conventional Eric opener, so the one where you go for the 15 supply hatchery and then into an Overlord, is that you don't have a second Overlord until, well, after the hatchery, right? For obvious reasons. And it turns out it leaves you very susceptible to a bunch of cheeses, because you don't actually notice that your natural, for example, is being cannon rushed until, well, the photon cannons are there, or until your Overlord eventually shows up. Which, yeah, is a pretty rough situation for Zerg. Anyhow, we've got ourselves a quick 3rd Nexus right here on the back of this Stargate opener too. Not a whole lot that Zerg can really do against it, but yeah, Serral does decide to make around the links. I don't really mind it, to be honest. Link speed is done at this point, and we did see a quick Stalker here, a single Adept, and then an Oracle. Okay. Cleverly right now, Creator, I think he's been playing a few too many games against somebody like, for example, Dark. He decides to keep that Oracle at home. Dark is definitely the type of guy who can just randomly show up with 20 links at this point and really hurt his own economy. In this case, we've got 8 links in total, a couple more coming up. 4 as a couple, right? I mean, it's 2 couples of Zerglings, so you know, they come out of 1 cocoon each, or sorry, there's 2 in each cocoon, so. Anyhow. Nothing all too strange. I actually quite like this. So Creator always having an Oracle up in the air to protect the 3rd base. Yeah, he didn't move that very first Oracle until the 2nd one was there to protect it. A 3rd one will be out very shortly as well. Okay, he's taking control of the watchtowers. Very good defense here so far from Serral. This is something that yeah, we barely even notice anymore. But if you compare this to a lot of the other games of ZVP that I cast, we do see triple Oracle Adept openers just dealing, I don't know, 2 digits worth of drones all the time. And nobody really is too surprised by that. Now, maybe this can over here, though, deal a bunch of damage, because that is way more Adepts than you actually expect as a Zerg at this point in the game. Serral's still droning. He has seen the move out. Serral's usually a fan of making wall-offs here on top of the ramp, but I don't think he can really easily do that here. Let's see. Perfect amount of links, it seems. 4th hatchery also coming up. Let's see if maybe these oracles can get something done. 1 drone, 2 drones. They want to get a 3rd. A little bit of hesitation right there for Creator. Okay. So all he really achieved was forcing out a couple more of those Zerglings than, well, Serral would have liked to make. Not a huge deal right here, but it can definitely slow things down. This was a relatively late Evo for Serral's sake. He is quite a big fan of going for the quick +1 melee. That is not the case in this game, so he's planning on sticking around on roaches for quite a while, which is actually kind of funny. On a large map like this, I really would have expected +1 melee instead. So he's, yeah, setting himself up for a, well, either like a roach timing attack, or for example, a bit more of a macro game where you go into hydras and then lurkers, and you just sort of defend in the early game using your roaches. Now this is actually a good amount of damage. He does lose an oracle here. Don't lose another, please. Yeah, no, I hate everything about that now. Getting the 6 drones was nice, but losing 2 oracles for 6 drones is really not worth it when Zerg is already sitting at like 70 of them. You can power out a lot of drones very easily, and those oracles have so much utility later on into the game. Creator was probably like, oh my god, I'm dealing so much damage right now, this is amazing, I'm doing it against Serral, look at me! Yeah, no, that was definitely not worth it. I know that this unit's lost tab looks pretty biased in favor of the Protoss, but honestly, it really isn't anymore. Problem is, Zerg is now done making workers. We've got ourselves, okay. I think Serral is a little bit inspired though by seeing some of those replays. That is so funny. Nematized Carapace finishes up. The man is ready to march the queens is what I was gonna say. But instead we're doing a march of the overlords. Da, 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 da. What are we doing? What in the world are we doing? Are we bringing the queens to fight? I guess we are. There's a phoenix over here chasing this down, but the phoenix looks like it will get sniped pretty easily. Okay, good force fields over there though, but there are a few ravagers available. Plus, yeah, there's still a little bit of space. Look at this. It's an overlord timing attack. There's a lot of Protoss here available though, and he doesn't even have, he hasn't even used the battery overcharge yet. There he goes. I don't see the amount of roaches though. Yeah, they immediately just walked up to the shield battery and sniped it. This is, once again, one of those timings we don't normally see. Imagine now if there were 3 oracles available to defend, it would be really nice. It looks like Creator is still going to be able to hold on by the skin of his teeth, but what in the world was this attack right here from Serral? Serral probably looking at that early game, he's like, yo, I didn't have this planned, but you just gave me a bunch of units for free. I mean, I lost some drones, but that didn't really matter that much. Okay, good pickup control right here by Creator, though. Yeah, the roach count is still huge. There is a 4th nexus a little bit further north. That is nice. A lot of shield batteries here too, by the way, from Creator, but not to the point where I feel like he really overmade it. Okay, nicely done here actually by Creator. He does manage to hold on. Seriously though, imagine if he had 3 oracles and not 1 oracle at the start of that fight. Like, he was holding on just barely, especially against the initial wave. Those oracles would have probably killed like 2, 3, maybe 4 roaches each. And that can, well, add up very quickly. We're now going into a mass Tropolord? Really? I don't know what Serral's been having for breakfast lately, man, but he's been watching some Eric replays in the morning, that's for sure. That is so funny. This is a mechanic that has been virtually unchanged for years. Zerg drops just never really caught on because, I mean, there were metas where we did see them from time to time. I guess, you know, as much as we see them right now, but this is definitely a lot more frequent, especially coming out of the man who's considered to be the very best player in the world. We used to see them. I don't know how many of you remember this. Grandpa Loco talking here. Okay, just decides to go after all of the spellcasters here, I would imagine. Some of you may remember the meta. I think this was Heart of the Swarm or maybe Wings of Liberty. It's a long time ago. Where Zerg would quite literally go for Baneling drops. It was one of my favorite playstyles. Very cost inefficient, but you could essentially carpet bomb the Protoss army just by running over them. And this is actually also Serral just overwhelming all of those Immortals right now. That Immortal also falls. This is before charge would give you a massive movement speed though, so it's a long time ago. But it turns out if you have like a cloud of Overlords, a swarm of Overlords, I guess that's a good name for a group of OVs. You could, unload the Banelings on the move, and you would have this strange carpet bomb situation. And if Protoss didn't expect it, like for example right there, that could have been a disaster. He's going back in though. Still, Creator's economy is looking nice. Yeah, I actually don't think that this road shenanigans, as strong as it's looked, has been particularly successful. He's sniped a lot of the heavy hitters, yes, but Creator has been doing an excellent job holding on. He's now, as a matter of fact, at 72 workers versus the 66 of Serral. So Serral is actually going into a hive, he's going into a spire too. This is, again, a bit of a classic combination of structures. Turns out the spire and the hive take the same amount to build, or the same amount of time at least to build, and then you can morph in the greater spire right at the start. Observer though, up in the skies. Creator can see this coming in from a mile away. Excellent stuff right here for Creator. He's making a Phoenix here, maybe a bit concerned about the potential that his opponent is gonna go for like a, I don't know, a group of mutas here all of a sudden, but honestly seeing the hive timing should make this pretty clear cut. That said, he still needs to micro his butt off. Zerg mostly just attack moving here. I mean, I say that. It's not like Serral isn't, yeah. Playing this game at 500 plus average actions per minute. A lot of the roaches are starting to fall though, and yeah, Creator is pushing this back. I actually think he should stand and fight this. It's a lot of low HP roaches. You should really not give them the chance here to regenerate health once again. He does decide to make that call. Observer, by the way, does see the timing here of the Spire morphing into a greater Spire. Excellent play right here by Creator, although he hasn't really responded yet. Phoenixes aren't the unit to make, man. I'm surprised he's making Phoenixes. Like, he's in a really good... this position here is excellent. The problem is that this is not an army. I know there's Blink, but... there's no Blink, actually. Ooh, he hasn't even started up Blink yet. I figured we would have Blink at the very least. Could have sworn I've seen him blinking, but I guess I just saw the Prism picking up units. I am very surprised he is making Phoenixes at no Blink Stalkers against somebody who's going Greater Spire, yeah. So I think his move here is to go for an all-out attack right before the Brute Lords hit the battlefield. And he may very well be right. He still has 6 Immortals and 3 Archons, but without Blink, you can't really push very effectively. The Observer also needs to move over here. Yeah, there is an Observer now in the air. Okay. Get rid of all of those creep tumors, because that is providing so much value right here for the Zerg. A couple of Misrelite Roaches. Serral does get on top of those. Now Blink starts up. Charge at this point is done, but he... No, he canceled charge in favor of Blink. Ay, 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 ay. Hold up, I need to go back. Is that what he did? Yeah, so I'm assuming that was a misclick. I think he also assumed he already finished up Blink. He should have finished up Blink at that point. Yeah, he cancels it, and then he put... Okay. Now this becomes a very strange situation, though. This army gets countered really hard by Brute Lords. If Brute Lords hit the battlefield, you don't even need that many. If you have like 6 of them, Brute Lords will kill all of this. Easy peasy. Brute Lords, remember, are also a little bit faster now than they were in basically every single previous patch of StarCraft 2. There's no reliable way for Creator to kill Brute Lords here, so that's why he's pushing so aggressively. I think he either needs to transition towards a proper counter, aka Stargate units, right? Preferably carriers, Tempest, that sort of thing. So yeah, he does start up that exact transition right now. But he hasn't really done any damage with this attack. Like, he's trading roaches for expensive units. 19 Stalkers have gone down. I think this is a trade that Creator isn't all too happy with. Then again, he still has 4 base eco. I would have really liked to see that push with both charge as well as Blink done. I think that actually would have been a game changer. I think Creator would have won the game, actually. Wouldn't have been surprised. He would have had so much more value to, yeah, obtain out of his Stalker army. Zealots without charge against this many Roaches and Ravagers also seems a little bit silly. Anyways, he goes for a 5th Nexus here on the left side. Obviously, this is by no means game over yet, but now the Brute Lords are out. Queens also decide to march forward. That creep spread going backwards, by the way. It's like arms that are moving backwards on the map. Really cool to see. What are you gonna do? Yeah, he needs something. So Tempests are coming up. Tempest will be out in about a minute. Maybe a little less than that. That's why Serral's being quite aggressive here with the brutes. He only has 8 of them right now. Not all of them are over here, though. I was gonna say, yeah, there's not quite enough. Okay, there's the blink forward. That's well done. Rapid fire, though, on the transfusion will save at least one of the brutes. Okay, a little bit of a skirmish here on the left side, too, to try and clear out those creep tumors. Serral realizes the transition. I don't know if he's seen it. Yeah, he has seen it. Oh my god, he's even contaminating it. That's insane. That's not an ability we usually see. He's also seen the Tempest right now at the front. He's making a bunch of Corruptors. Serral going for one of the best unit comps in the game. Corruptor Hydra. All the pro gamers love it. Maybe that's the plan. He's going for a Lurker Den instead, though. He's just getting a couple Hydra upgrades. We've got ourselves some creep moving here, too. That Nexus, of course, eventually did fall. And what looked like a really solid game right there for Creator is starting to slip out of his hands. I mean, it's certainly not game over yet, though. Serral doesn't have a lot of money. He's never really remade any of those workers of his. Yeah, you know what? I would have liked this a whole lot better for Serral if he had like 80-something workers, but he's only got 62. Void Race coming up as well. I think ultimately for Creator, what you're looking for here is a maxed out Skytles army, right? But he has all of these Immortals now still available that, well, are good against roaches, but the longer that this game goes on, the worse that the Immortals are. So I wouldn't mind seeing him go for an attack, but it's risky. Don't really like the split, by the way, of his army. He's basically saying, yo, I am never gonna remake that base over here, and honestly, the creep is so far forward right now that Serral can quite literally block it with a creep tumor. But the positioning right here of the army is not very indicative that he wanted to defend that third in the first place. Okay. Now carriers are coming. Yep. So what do you do, though? What do you do with the Immortals? There is a moment where those Immortals are a complete waste of supply. Serral going into Queens with Corruptors, Brute Lords, and Infestors. And then a whole lot of Zerglings with Adrenal Glands too, and Roaches and Ravagers left over. I mean, the man's making a little bit of everything. I actually think it looks very chaotic, but it's organized chaos. Okay, here comes the Protoss. He needs to trade out these units, man. This is such an awkward unit composition. Like, Tempests were made in a desperate moment. The Immortals, well, same thing, honestly. They were also made when the Zerg was knocking at his front door, but this unit composition here from Creator is progressively getting worse. Yeah, I actually don't mind this. Just sort of get rid of the Immortals. I know it feels weird, because earlier, like just a few minutes ago, you were trying desperately to get these units out. Serral not even taking the bait, man. He's walking onto creep, he's like, nah. Nah, you like Immortals? You keep your Immortals, I don't really care. Okay, here come the Brute Lords, though, in the meantime, on the left side of the map. There are transfusions available. Okay, Queen's trying her very best. We do have a prismatic alignment on the one Immortal there, but fungal growth is making it so difficult. Fungal also connects. Again, a chain fungal there on all of those units. Okay, instead we have that awkward squad. This is whatever was awkward, okay? The awkward squad apparently gets dedicated to the counterattack. Carriers are coming out. The main army here on the left was destroyed. That Nexus, though, still lives. These Immortals should be able to get pretty decent trades here until eventually the Brute Lords arrive. Although, yeah, no, they're pretty far behind. Okay, we've got some Void Rays in the air. Technically the counter right here for all of those Corruptors. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird engagement there too, because the number's certainly in favor of the Zerg. Creator does actually grab a bunch of those Corruptors as well on his way out. The Brute Lords, a little bit faster in the new patch, but still pretty darn slow. And Creator marches back home. Okay. Still with 6 Immortals now in his unit comp. There's no way Serral's gonna be remaking any Roaches and Ravagers at this point. Okay, the Roach Ravager squad now on the left side of the map, combined with a bunch of Lynx. They're gonna be able to shut down this base easy peasy. Instead, we see now the Protoss committing to a fight over here, and that does look pretty good. But again, he doesn't have enough yet to deal with all of those brutes. He needs to be so careful, man, yeah. How are you gonna get out if you get fungled? This is an overextension right here for Creator. Sure, he killed the base, but he is gonna lose his entire army, and that was not the price he was hoping to pay. This game really felt like it was all over the place, but this was Serral in firm control ever since he got those 2 oracles in his main base. Remember that at like the 6-minute mark? StarCraft 2, of course, is a strategy game. But for the vast majority of players out there, myself included, basically anybody below the top 20, it comes down to trying to execute stuff as fast as possible, right? Not until you really get to the top of the line do you see these guys actually playing a proper, well, strategic game. And I think that previous match was a great example of exactly that. Serral just faster than his opponent, right? He just, yeah, was a step ahead strategically in every single moment. Felt to me, at the very least, that Creator was playing catch-up. Okay, so this time around, it is a quote-unquote full Eric. So 15 Hedge, 15 Overlord, and then eventually a pool. Creator, in the meantime, going for a relatively standard start. And with relatively, I mean completely. Relatively is sometimes a word I mix in. Every commentator has this, okay? There's a little commentator secret. Everybody has words that they use frequently to try and stretch a sentence so you can string words together at the end of the sentence that make you sound smart. And I do mix in some words a little bit too. Relatively is a long one. It's usually pretty appropriate, but this is not a very good situation for the use of the word relatively. There was actually some great memes on the StarCraft 2 subreddit the other day of different words that different commentators use. Different phrases that everybody uses. I don't think there's as many phrases that I use anymore these days, at least if you compare it to my early casts. I feel like I used to say the exact same lines every single video, all the time. I've tried working on that over the last few years. I think part of that had to do with the fact that, well, I'm from the Netherlands. So I had to learn English. Part of that, yeah, part of it is definitely that, but it's also very easy to get, carried away, saying the same things multiple times. Interestingly enough, these days, if I don't know, if I have to do any sort of public speaking in Dutch, that would be way more difficult for me than doing any sort of public speaking in English. I would much prefer doing that in English than in Dutch. I did a little bit of voiceover work some time ago. And obviously, when you do any sort of voiceover, you'll listen back to what you said, right? But I did the voiceover in Dutch. Honestly, I know most people have this when they listen to their own voice, right? When you listen to your own voice in a recording. For me, listening to myself in English, no problem. But listening to myself in the language I grew up knowing, it's a little bit cringe. Anyways, we've got ourselves a Twilight console opener here. He's decided to go for a little bit of a variety here. Problem for him, though, is that Serral sees this coming in. Yeah. Gets a Zergling, sees the timing, knows exactly what he's likely to be playing against. So technically there are about 4 builds that are good from here, but realistically there's really only about 2. So it could be Blink, could be Charge, could be Glaive to Depths, that's one of the 2 good options, or of course Dark Templar into Archon. All of these do have varieties, so for example 32 probes for a Zealot all-in, you could have a triple gas Stalkers with Blink, you can have a standard Glaive to Depth opener with like 4 gateways, which I think is what this is going to be, yeah. However, there's a lot of different varieties within this exact, flavor of Protoss as well, so even though Serral does know roughly what he's playing against, he doesn't know the exact flavor that he is facing. So he needs to be a bit careful. So we've got a lair. That's interesting, actually. A lot of Zerg players choose to defend Glaive to Depth openers, which is probably the most popular variant, with a single gas, and then just about 44, 45-ish drones and a lot of links and roaches. Serral decides to go for a lair here with a second gas into an Evo chamber right now. Okay, so his drone count is definitely lower than where it could be. So he's getting some vision here of both of the potential third base options. Protoss, though, ready to move across the map. Glaives is gonna finish up. Prism is on the back of this too. These pylons are late. It's not huge, but it definitely does slow down his attack by a few seconds. Okay. Yeah, look at this. So this is kind of what Protoss players do in Protoss versus Protoss. Right? Where they quickly make a pylon. Oh, that creep tumor's... okay. That creep tumor was in the way. They make a pylon or a shield battery or whatever to complete the wall off to prevent the adepts from shading in. I think Serral is trying to do the same thing over here if these adepts decide to get ambitious with an evolution chamber block. Again, not something we normally see from Zerg. He sees the shade, starts up the Evo. Now what? You know why it's also ironic to me? I died to these pushes all the freaking time. I died to... Serral's droning during this. I died to these attacks so frequently. Creator needs to get something done right here with these units. There we go again. Okay, well that's still a lot of adepts though. I was gonna say, yeah, the roach count is really not looking quite as healthy. Drone once again getting in position for the shade. You have to be fast on the keyboard, man, to pull that off, but... We even have an Evo chamber over here, interestingly enough. I guess that was to try and block the units from going through that mineral line. There are a couple drones right now dying in the main base. Once again, evolution chamber blocks left, right, and center. This time around, we have adepts shading all through one another. Only 2 drones have gone down. Keep in mind, there's no third nexus on the back of this yet. So he could definitely go for a third nexus, of course, but he needs to get more damage in than what he's dealt so far. Even at this moment, 12 drones, 13 drones, 15 drones. Okay, we're getting there now. It's not entirely justifying this push yet. Okay. Yeah, it's a slippery slope, man. Once the damage starts happening, Protoss, generally speaking, yeah, it's gonna feel pretty comfortable. Again, though, no third nexus. This third is incredibly late. Creator decided to go full aggression. He's had the money to expend for quite a while. The problem is, Zerg is definitely going to push you back. Adepts are not gonna win the fight in the long run. So, yeah, Serral now going in for a counterattack. Now, this is lovely, though. Still a whole lot of adepts over here in the natural. Sniping drones, targeting them down. Very nice. But this third nexus is gonna be difficult to secure. I think he's gonna be forced to cancel that. Serral, in the meantime, re-droning. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of workers that have died. 24 workers that have died. But without a protected third nexus, what in the world are you going to do? There is an immortal out right now. That's gonna make it easier to eventually secure that third. But the third should have already been up. Contamination once again being used. It feels like Serral really is the final raid boss, man. Like he's doing side quests right now where he's he's coming up with his own builds. He's doing contamination play. Contamination is the least used ability in the entire game. It basically shuts down production temporarily. This is something that is, for obvious reasons, really good. But when you're putting out 7 fires already, mixing an 8th fire into the mix is really hard. Now he's going into burrow with tunneling claws. +1 missile. Insane. I hope Serral is getting the practice for Zerg versus Zerg that he's been looking for, man. Because his ZVP and ZVT, I've seen quite a few of those games over the last couple of weeks. They look absolutely unstoppable. Don't get me wrong, by the way. His Zerg versus Zerg is fantastic too, but that has always been his main linchpin, I would say. Like the main problem he runs into. Anyhow, of course, again, definitely not game over. But Creator is, yeah, now long distance mining a third base. Oh, beautiful force fields. No detection, though. Okay, there's the detection coming in. Okay, that was excellent work right there by Creator. Really lovely force fields, baiting the Zerg over the bridge. Now tunneling claws is done, and Serral is going to be able to at least squeeze some of those roaches across. Make sure that they are at the very least back to safety. A lot more roaches coming in, though. Metabolic boost only about halfway done right here for the Zerg player. Didn't quite realize, actually, that he decided to go for that fast of a lair, where he skipped the link speed. That is wild. Most Zerg players go for +1 gas. Speed links with Ravagers to deal with adept pushes. This was a quick lair together with, yeah, just a wall off on top of the high ground. Okay, this Nexus now also in trouble. This now sort of makes this an all-in. Yeah, Creator has a scary looking army, but he does not have the economy anywhere. Roach is now just wandering to the base. They didn't even really need Tunneling Claws. As long as Serral can hold this attack, I think he's gonna be okay. That Prism is looking very exposed to me, man. 3 Biles to finish that off would be amazing. Turns out, though, it's unnecessary as Serral obtains the victory.